Learn English through story. The dark allure of love. In the heart of the sprawling city of Arendelle, a place where dreams and desires seem to take on a life of their own, there was a man named Julian. He was an artist, known for his remarkable ability to capture the essence of beauty in every stroke of his brush. His paintings were filled with vibrant colors, mesmerizing landscapes, and ethereal figures that seemed to come alive on the canvas. But despite his growing fame, Julian felt a hollowness that no amount of artistic success could fill. For all the beauty he created, there was one thing that eluded him: love. He had always been fascinated by love, not in the simple sense of companionship or affection, but in its more profound, intoxicating, and sometimes dangerous form. He longed for a love that would consume him, that would take him to the highest peaks of ecstasy and the deepest depths of despair. He desired the kind of love that poets wrote about, the kind that could destroy as easily as it could create. Julian had never known such love, though he had tasted glimpses of it in fleeting affairs that never seemed to last. Women admired him for his talent and his brooding charm, but none had ever stirred the dark passion that he craved. He often wandered the streets of Arendelle late at night, his mind filled with fantasies of a love so powerful it would overwhelm everything else. It was on one such night, as Julian walked along the quiet cobblestone streets beneath the dim glow of gas lamps, that he encountered her. Her name was Celine. She stood at the edge of a narrow alleyway, her figure illuminated by the pale moonlight. There was something otherworldly about her. Her long, dark hair flowed like liquid shadow, and her eyes, though hauntingly beautiful, seemed to hold within them a darkness that pulled at Julian's very soul. She was dressed in black, her lips a deep red that stood out against her pale skin. In that moment, Julian felt as though he had stumbled upon a figure from one of his own paintings, an alluring, dangerous creature of the night. Their eyes met, and Julian felt a shiver run down his spine. He was entranced, as if an invisible force had tethered him to her. Without a word, he approached. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Celine smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "I am whatever you wish me to be," she said, her voice smooth and seductive. Julian's heart raced. There was something in her gaze, something dark and mysterious, that both terrified and thrilled him. He couldn't look away. "I've seen you before," Celine continued, stepping closer. "In your paintings. You've been searching for me, haven't you?" Julian was taken aback. He had never met her before, but it was true. There was something about her that felt familiar, as if she had stepped out of one of his own dreams. His paintings often depicted women like her, haunting, seductive, and untouchable. But this was real. She was real. "How? How do you know that?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. Celine's smile widened, and she placed a hand on his chest, her touch cold but electrifying. "Because I am what you desire, Julian. I am the love you've been searching for. But be careful, what you seek can be dangerous." Julian's mind was spinning. How did she know his name? How did she know what he longed for? And yet, despite the questions that flooded his thoughts, all he could feel was an overwhelming pull toward her. It was as though she had tapped into the deepest recesses of his soul, awakening desires he had long kept buried. "I don't care," he whispered, his voice shaking with a mixture of longing and fear. "I need this. I need you." Celine's eyes gleamed with something dark and knowing, and she leaned in closer, her lips brushing against his ear. "Then come with me, Julian. But know this, once you cross into my world, there is no turning back." Without hesitation, Julian followed her into the alley, the city's dim lights fading behind them. As they walked, the world around them seemed to change. The air grew heavier, the shadows deeper. It was as if they had stepped into another realm, a place where the line between reality and fantasy blurred. Celine led him to a grand, decaying mansion at the outskirts of the city, hidden away in a forgotten part of Arendelle that few ever ventured into. The mansion was both beautiful and ominous, its Gothic architecture towering above them like a dark sentinel. Vines crept along its walls, and the windows were shrouded in heavy curtains, giving the impression that it had been abandoned for years. But as they entered, Julian was struck by the opulence within. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries, the floors polished to a gleam. Candles flickered in every corner, casting long shadows that danced across the room. It was a place that seemed frozen in time, a world where the past and present collided in a strange, unsettling harmony. Celine led him deeper into the mansion, and as they passed through its labyrinthine corridors, Julian felt a growing sense of unease. The further they went, the more he began to question what he had gotten himself into. But his desire for Celine, for the dark love she represented, was too strong to turn back now. They reached a grand hall, at the center of which stood an ornate, black marble altar. Celine turned to him, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "This is the moment of truth," she said, her voice low and seductive. "You've come here seeking love, but love is not what you think it is. It is not gentle, it is not kind. It is power, it is darkness, it is a force that can consume you, destroy you, if you let it. Do you still want it?" Julian's heart pounded in his chest. He had always believed that love was something beautiful, something that could elevate him beyond the mundane. But as he stood there, staring into Celine's eyes, he realized that he had been searching for something much darker. He wanted to be consumed, to be destroyed and reborn in the fires of passion. He wanted a love that would break him. "Yes," he whispered, his voice trembling with anticipation and fear. "I want it." Celine smiled, a wicked, knowing smile. "Then give yourself to me, Julian. Surrender everything you are, and I will show you the true nature of love." Without hesitation, Julian stepped forward, his heart racing with a mixture of fear and desire. Celine reached out, placing her hands on his chest, and he felt a jolt of electricity course through him. Her touch was cold, but it ignited a fire within him, a fire that burned hotter and brighter with every passing moment. As she drew him closer, Julian felt the darkness within her seeping into him. It was intoxicating, overwhelming. He could feel his sense of self slipping away, his thoughts consumed by the desire to be with her, to be part of her. It was as if she was draining him, taking everything he was and replacing it with something darker, something more primal. But even as he surrendered to the darkness, a small part of him resisted. A voice deep within him whispered that this was wrong, that the love he had sought was not meant to be like this. Love was supposed to be a source of light, not a force that consumed and destroyed. As if sensing his hesitation, Celine's grip tightened, her eyes glowing with a sinister light. "Do not fight it," she whispered. "This is what you wanted. You wanted to be consumed, to be broken. This is the price of the love you sought." Julian's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He had spent so long searching for this, for a love that would take him beyond the ordinary, but now that he had found it, he realized that it was not what he had truly wanted. The dark allure of love had blinded him, seduced him into believing that destruction was the path to fulfillment. With a surge of willpower, Julian broke free from Celine's grasp, stumbling backward. His heart raced, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he stared at her in horror. "No," he whispered, his voice trembling. "This isn't love. This is something else." Celine's eyes narrowed, her expression darkening. "You sought me out, Julian. You wanted this. You cannot turn back now." But Julian shook his head, his mind clearing as the truth finally dawned on him. He had been drawn to the dark allure of love, believing that it would fulfill the emptiness inside him, but now he saw that true love was not about being consumed or destroyed. It was about balance, about finding a connection that lifted both people up, not dragged them down into darkness. "I was wrong," he said, his voice growing stronger. "I thought I wanted this, but I don't." Love isn't about losing yourself, it's about finding yourself with someone else. Celine's expression twisted with rage, and the darkness in the room seemed to swell, pressing in on him. But Julian stood his ground, refusing to be pulled back into the abyss. He turned and ran, his heart pounding as he fled the mansion, his footsteps echoing in the silent halls. As he burst out into the night air, the weight of the darkness lifted from him. He gasped, inhaling deeply, feeling the cool breeze on his skin. The moon hung high above him, its light soft and reassuring, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness he had just escaped. Julian made his way back to the city, his mind racing with the events of the night. He had been seduced by the dark allure of love, believing that it would fill the emptiness inside him. But now he understood that true love was not about being consumed, it was about finding a partner who saw him for who he truly was, someone who would walk beside him, not drag him into darkness. As he reached the familiar streets of Arendelle, Julian knew that his search for love was far from over. But now, he had a new understanding. Love was not something to be feared or worshipped from afar. It was something to be shared, something that should lift him up rather than tear him down. And with that knowledge, Julian returned to his art, painting not the dark, seductive figures of his past, but images filled with light, hope, and the promise of a love that would heal rather than destroy. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.